Judge Henry has truly zoomed in here. If you're looking at his background, from somewhere in outer space, he is.
Yes, sir.
And Marty wants to know about procedures for compelling a ruling. That's going back to the subcommittee, and the parental leave continuance rule is done and going to the court, unless somebody tells me differently. Civil rules and municipal courts. Levi Benton is the chair. Judge Esteves is the vice chair, and whoever wants to lead off and talk. And Judge Henry, thank you for joining us. And thank you for your memo. It was very thoughtful. Thank you.
Oh, you're welcome. And I must say, this is a fascinating process to watch. I should have kind of popped in and saw you guys when you were doing it through Zoom, but it was very interesting.
Yeah, well, when we do it in person, there's often food fights. There's a lot of food there, and we sometimes toss it at each other, but this is much more civilized. So, Levi, take it away.
All right. Thank you, Chip. So, as Chip said, Judge Henry, who serves as a municipal court judge in San Antonio, I believe it is.
Actually, it's Westlake Hills up in the Austin area.
Thanks for correcting me. Excuse me. Wrote the chief maybe about a year ago, actually, and asked the chief to take a look at this topic. And the topic is considering whether the rules of civil procedure need to be made to apply to municipal courts. And so the chief, in his letter of about a year ago, asked us to consider Judge Ryan's proposal. The 4 proposals made by Judge Ryan are laid out in the report. I won't read them, but one, change Rule 2 to say expressly that the rules apply to municipal courts. And then the 3rd proposal was to come up with some specialized rules, like the rules in the 500 series that apply to JP courts. The subcommittee heard from a couple of other judges besides Judge Henry. And even in the small number of judges we visited with, there wasn't unanimity. There was a judge from Dallas who had some strong objection to having the civil rules apply to municipal courts. In the final analysis, the subcommittee thought the course we should take is to suggest to the court that we set up a committee of municipal court judges. Most of this committee remembers that when we went down this path with the JP courts, as I recall, the project went nowhere until we got JP justices or judges involved. I think there was a special committee of about 10 justices of the peace who made some proposals. And since I know of no one on our committee who practices in the municipal courts or knows anything about municipal court rules, I think would be challenged to come up with it. And there are over 1,000 municipal courts across the state, or about 1,000. We thought really we should use the same model used with the justices of the peace, and that is, maybe we reach out. The subcommittee didn't expressly address this, but maybe the right thing to do was either the court or the subcommittee reach out to the Municipal Courts Association and ask that organization to set up a committee to consider Judge Ryan's proposals. And really that's where we left it. So I'll yield to Judge Ryan or to Anna or Stephen Yelenowski, who's also on the subcommittee, to see if they'd like to add anything.
Judge Benton, may I go first real quick?
Absolutely. Unless
All
Chip
right.
says otherwise.
I'm not going to say anything, so you just take all my time too.
Yeah, go ahead. And I've been calling you Judge Henry, but maybe it's Judge Ryan. That's you have two first names, so.
Actually, Henry is the last name. Ryan is the first name. So it's Judge
Right.
Henry is correct, sir. First, I do want to thank the subcommittee for all of their work and for listening to me and for taking a very hard look at this particular issue. But the more you look at it and kind of the diversified nature of all the different courts and the way the legislature has given certain courts different powers and things like that, it's a little bit bigger elephant to eat, as I had heard a reference earlier on. And so dividing things up might be more appropriate. I had reached out and I just recently heard, so this is something the subcommittee, I had not informed them of yet, just recently heard back from the Texas Municipal Court Education Center. It is the training center for municipal judges and prosecutors and clerks throughout the state. And they basically offered me their certain resources that is their newsletter and their website ability to conduct surveys and actually just blast out information to all of the municipal judges. And they have to go through the TMCEC to get their judicial credit and their continuing education credit. And so they have a kind of a list of all of them and solicit comments and things like that that they can compile and actually bring back to the committee. So as Judge Benton had mentioned, reaching out to the ones that deal with them all the time, I did get an affirmative commitment from the executive director. I want to say it was Sunday night. That they would be willing to do that if that's what the subcommittee felt was appropriate. It would just be kind of what to ask them all about. My concern and the reason I brought this up was just their municipal courts, especially municipal courts of record, have been given more and more civil jurisdiction to try and handle, I guess, an overflow and to make things more cost effective for both all the parties involved and to respond quicker. As Judge Benton had mentioned that the judge in Dallas, that's Judge Acuna, and he's actually on the board for the TMCEC or TMCA. I'm sorry, that's the association that overlooks them. He didn't necessarily have a problem with the rules. He just wants special rules because he recognizes all of the different nuances that kind of come up in the different counties. And I have received comments from different judges that basically said either thank you very much, we need this because there's no guidance on certain issues, or don't do it because you're going to screw things up for us because those courts have some specialized things that they have to deal with. Municipal courts are so diverse. I mean, if you just compare, say, Lubbock, and it's a municipal court of record, and they have, quite a few civil matters that go on, with El Paso, who has a tremendous amount of civil matters that go on, but the statute expressly gives them a municipal court of appeals. And so the rules that apply with them are completely different than the rest of the state. And I joke with she's the former city attorney, but she actually is the new president-elect for the state bar, Sylvia Firth, that, I was born in El Paso, but El Paso is a different country in a different world. But they still have to follow the rules that are submitted. So I believe that the subcommittee's intent was just get more input and get them involved earlier, the judges that live and breathe in this world, as to what kind of rules they think should apply. I do know there is a certain population, that myself included, that wants some guidance, and because we want to do it right. But there does need to be some flexibility, but that's why we need to kind of get the comments from all the rest of the judges. So I'm available for questions, but otherwise I'll shut up now.
Okay, thank you very much, Judge. Anything else, Levi, or do you want to open it up to questions, or tell us where you want to go?
Well, I guess, need direction. I think where I personally part company with or differ with what Ryan just said is that I don't know that we need necessarily comments from more judges, municipal court judges. I think we need an express or a formal request from the court, either to the TMCA or the other organization that he referred to, asking them to draft rules and or to expressly say as a body, thanks but no thanks.
What did the referral letter from the court say? Do you know, Levi or Marty? Do you know?
Yes, it says to set up a process for considering the proposal submitted by Judge Ryan, by Judge Henry.
He'll answer to either.
Pardon?
I said he'll answer to either, I'm sure.
Yes, sir.
Yeah, and he'll even answer if you don't say judge. He's just put me in, coach.
Yeah, right. So to set up a process to respond to that and then report to the court, is that what?
Set up a process for considering the proposal. So Chip, circling back to where I started, you're mature enough to remember when we went down this road with the justices of the peace, right?
Yeah, well, I tried 20 jury trials in JP court.
But didn't we have a special committee of justices of the peace? And I don't remember, and I don't know whether, I'm sure they have an analogous state association, whether that association was involved. In other words, this wasn't a top-down approach because it could never work as a top-down approach. We got to have the municipal court judges and municipal court administrators buy in that there is a need for the rules, because we already have, well, first, like in Houston, I could get no interest amongst the judges to respond to the inquiry. We had a Dallas judge to respond who says, I'm not sure we need to do this because we don't have, we're not set up to apply rules of discovery like other courts. So to answer your question, Chip, we need direction.
Okay, Lisa's got some historical information for us. But you'll have to unmute, Lisa.
All right, I moved my phone. My recollection is that when we rewrote the rules, I obviously wasn't around for the first time we did the JP rules, but when we rewrote them, which has been last years, we did have a JP study group that worked with before it came to the advisory committee. In other words, this committee is fantastic within our experience, and even fantastic in kind of punching some holes in things that other people have written, but most of us haven't practiced in municipal court. So I would second Judge Benton's recommendation that this really needs to come from the municipal judges, and then us assess what they're doing. And that doesn't mean no support. Maybe it means supported by the second. But I do think there needs to be a special group of municipal judges from varying size counties to kind of assess it in this instance and then propose something to us for review.
Okay, thank you. David Jackson. You'll have to unmute, David.
I just would ask that Lisa go back to her computer. We could hear her perfectly this morning. I got about half of what you said.
Yeah, Lisa, you were breaking up a little bit, but half of Lisa is, 120% of most of us, so.
I'm sorry, my computer's audio stopped working, so then I had to switch to my phone, which is why you're seeing me outdoors more often, because I can, so I apologize. I'm mostly supporting what Levi is saying, is that it needs to be ground up and not top down.
Yeah. Well, I think that makes sense. And I know Professor Carlson and I served on a subcommittee a number of years ago, and we had it may have been Judge Lawrence or it may have been somebody else, but it was kind of a subcommittee of one person because he's the only one that knew what was going on down there. So Levi, unless there are more questions, we'll take this under advisement, as they say, and I'll confer with the court, and we'll see if more work needs to be done or a committee, a sort of a bottom-up committee needs to be formed. And if that's all right with you, unless somebody else, Judge Henry, if you got anything else or anybody else, and Judge Henry's got his hand up, so you're recognized.
Well, I believe Judge Benton trying to say something first.
Yeah, so
I must have in
thanks.
front of him.
Thank you, Ryan. So Chip and Chief, I think to say it differently, if there's agreement that someone should reach out to one of these state associations that municipal courts and judges belong to, should that request or should the communication come from me, from Chip, or from the court? And that's all I got to say.
Well, I know who I'd rank last and who I'd rank first. I would be last, and the court, I think, would be first. So
That's
Levi,
what I
that
think,
makes
yeah,
you
I
in
would
the
agree
middle.
with that. I just, okay.
All right. Well, we'll go back to that, and then Judge Henry, what did you have a comment?
Yes, sir. The two groups, if you're going to reach out, and from what I'm hearing, it's essentially have the judges collect, write the rules that they think want to control them and bring it back to you. But when the court asks for it, the two groups to make such a request, and I think we can get some coordination because I know the individuals that kind of head both groups. One is the TMCEC, and the other is the State Bar section. The State Bar has a section for municipal court, and both would be, at least in my opinion, appropriate to reach out for and ask for some guidance with regard to, proposing rules.
Great. I'm writing that down. Thank you, Judge. Any other comments about this?
None for me.
All right, no hands are up, so that means that in record time, we have gotten through a 9-item agenda. So Zoom may be the way to go in the future. And Judge Henry, you can go back to Mars or wherever that planet is behind you, and everybody else can go back home, which is where probably a lot of you are. So thank you so much. I thought this meeting went very smoothly, and it was productive, and it's a testament to all of you guys. And so thank you. And I'm very sorry I had to duck out for a little bit this afternoon, but duty calls. So we will stand